Hello friends, welcome to You Do You. I have a sample to unpack. This is the first new era Amouage that I'm trying. It's called Royal Tobacco. I think tobacco is such a difficult note to work with because it takes over the composition so very easily. This is the first Amouage that I'm trying since Christopher Chong, the creative director, left the brand. From what I gather, Royal Tobacco is reminiscent of the Amouage fragrances, the style of them during Christopher Chong's time. The juice. The perfumer behind Royal Tobacco is Cecile Zarokian, who, along with two other perfumers, did Epic Woman, which I think is just a feat of poise, flawless poise. So here we go. I told the seller, hello Ian, that I didn't want to go for 10 ml of it because I just want to know, is it going to be on my wish list? Tobacco isn't something that you know what, it's all because of tobacco lore. Tobacco lore is so linear that, you know, after 3 wears of it, I was just, oh good God, I don't really want to smell tobacco again. But this might change it, who knows? It's just first impressions of Royal Tobacco from my favorite house, Amouage. Oh God, oh yes. This is tobacco experienced in the heart of a garden with a waterfall in it. More than opulent, the word that comes to mind is generous. There's a very strong green streak that runs through the whole thing, which might be the fenugreek, and there's olibanum in it, but the olibanum I think is really blended with all the other notes, so it feels more like a backbone than a single note that's there for you to smell. At 3 minutes, this pretty much is the best tobacco that I've smelled. I'm comparing it to Dior's Tobacco Lore, which again is just too linear. Burberry London, which isn't bad, but you know, I mean, this is different league entirely. Black Walnut from Banana Republic, which is really good. It won an award in fact, but still, I mean, you know, it's a different category altogether. What else? Tovas Handsome, which is really good. I really will say that it's really good. The vintage, I don't know about the new Tovas, but the vintage is really, really good. But again, that's an entirely different category almost. So it's been something like 5 minutes. Now, most of the little details that were so perceivable during the first 2 minutes of the fragrance are at about like 7 minutes, not exactly as strong as they were, which, you know, you might expect. But even though at 8 minutes it's already less detailed, I'm pretty sure, number one, I'm pretty sure that they're still doing their thing. I mean, they can't have evaporated in the space of 7 minutes, but so they're still doing their thing, but they're not as prominent as they were when I first sprayed it. At about like 8 minutes, it does resemble more like the beefiness of Amouages, such as, I was going to say the beefiness of Amouage Journeyman, but that one's bigger. This one's more kind of, in comparison to Journey, almost kind of like on the delicate side. Very strong, very robust, but at the same time also delicate. One thing I'm loving about the first 10 minutes of it is that it doesn't feel very warm. I wouldn't wear it on a summer evening, but if somebody wanted to, or if even I wanted to, it could work. I'll get back to this video after maybe an hour. So it's been more than an hour and 15 minutes, and before I went on a break, I actually did the full wear. I'd be able to give you a better picture of what I feel about Royal Tobacco. It's a great thing that I went for a full wear because apparently when you do, you really get this accord, something that will remind you of bubblegum. And I think that has everything to do with the combination of the elemi, the anise, and the bergamot. Bubblegum, bubblegum. And a pleasant one. However, insofar as that aspect is concerned, it really did remind me of a recently smelled perfume, Xerjoff's Regio. And as far as that tendency is concerned, I found Xerjoff Regio to be more convincing. It was more unsettling. And because that's the thing, if I have a criticism against this release from Amouage, I think it's not as unsettling as their other releases. Royal Tobacco is not quite an acquired taste the same way that the earlier Amouages are, because there's nothing, it's not unsettling. Because one of the things I love about Amouage fragrances is that usually when I try them for the first time, I find something that's really problematic. And then the funny thing is, like, the day after, that problematic thing would appear in my head. It would occur in my head as something that is haunting me, that I end up wanting to smell it again. And then when I do smell it again, I end up loving it. So it's a very beautiful irritation. Maybe later I'll want to think about the nature of that irritation more, but for now, I'll just keep moving on about first impressions about the first hour and a half of Royal Tobacco. To me, it had a really, really, really gorgeous opening that was incredibly detailed. And then, after that, it went through a period of blah. Like blah, 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 blah. Like from 10 minutes to about an hour, I really felt like this is dull. It crossed my mind that, you know, this might be better if they had just taken out the tobacco. Like, keep everything in it, just take out the tobacco and we'd have a better perfume. It did cross my mind because, you know, as a tobacco fragrance, I'm just referring to minute 11 to minute 59. As a tobacco fragrance, it's that the tobacco felt like a soloist that was supported by these other players, which are really more beautiful than the tobacco note itself. And so I felt like, Christ, this is just blah. And then at the 1 hour mark, it suddenly became beautiful again because the tobacco kind of like died down. And then the prune in the heart went up. I suppose it's a prune, but in my notes, what I wrote was inky plum. And it's gorgeous. It really is. At the 1 hour mark, you get inky, I wrote inky plum, a host of resins, and not just incense. So, and when you look at the notes, if you go read the notes, I mean, there's olibanum and there's peru balsam and many other resins, and you get all those. And I wrote here, the tobacco becomes a part of the orchestra, so to speak, rather than a soloist supported by it. So when that happens at the 1 hour mark, it really is irresistible. At 1 hour and 10 minutes, I'm convinced that this is really quite unique and original. This is just a first impressions video. I didn't even go for, the long stretch of what it's like to wear Royal Tobacco, but what I really can say is that if you happen to be a niche virgin, and if you're considering, because of all the stellar reviews that it's gotten, of getting Naxos from Xerjoff, I'm telling you, do try to test Royal Tobacco first, because in my book, Royal Tobacco is already better than Naxos. However, that said, insofar as the bubblegum accord is concerned, and I'm still kind of like torn between this Royal Tobacco and Xerjoff Regio, because Regio is more unsettling, like I said earlier. It's kind of like weirder, and also as a composition, Regio it's weightless, whereas Royal Tobacco feels like a strictly cool weather scent, and it's kind of heavy. It's like heavy the way velvet is heavy. So if Royal Tobacco were velvet, then Xerjoff Regio strikes me as more like silk. So much lighter. I'm not really sure if I want a full bottle of this. Well, I still have 4 ml of this, and I think it's gonna last me quite a while. Maybe when I finish this, I'll see if I'm gonna want a full bottle. But my guess is only because I'm not exactly a huge fan of tobacco. My guess is I won't go for a full bottle. But if you go for a full bottle of Royal Tobacco from Amouage, I really won't be surprised. Again, this is just first impressions. And it's just been an hour and 30 minutes. At this point, I can say that it's dazzling. Dazzling and sexy, masculine leaning, I should say. It's borderline aloof, just borderline. And also, one thing I love about it is that it's one of those fragrances that don't battle against all the other olfactory impressions that you might get while you're living your life. Because I went to the kitchen where I just cooked curry, and I know that if I were wearing something by, say, Chanel, the kitchen would smell horrible to me. But with this, with Royal Tobacco, as it certainly is with a fragrance like Voyage d'Hermès Parfum from Hermès, it's kind of like friendly to other impressions in the environment. So it's not doing battle against wherever you might be living. So is it full bottle worthy? If you're a tobacco lover, I would say yes. Definitely it's a must try. And even though the period from 11 minutes to 59 minutes is kind of, to me, just really dull. Even though it's that, to my nose, its beauty at the 1 hour mark and onwards makes up for that period of blah. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again.